7 years ago, national press and TV eagerly reported fraud in Chipping Norton. Mr. Fraser never filed any crime reports or made a complaint against Thames Valley Police. Fraud is so rampant they are not interested. There may be up to 100,000 dormant limited companies illegally trading. For 5 years, club member Charlie Korshevsky frequently filed identical evidence at TVP who never interviewed his witnesses or him, despite the simplicity of his evidence. TVP had listened into fraudster Jamie Buchanan's phone call of how about 50 UK clubs were defrauded by his dormant limited company and his corrupt solicitors. Buchanan was also a director of V-Bar Limited, who had criminally colluded with Wilkin Chapman solicitors. His simple evidence readily warranted a police interview of the fraudsters under caution. TVP frivolously refused a copy of that phone call, despite knowing that HMRC had lost over £500,000 in Chipping Norton alone. Because the police gave tacit support to manifest fraudsters, Charlie wrote many letters to his chief constable from the 7th of April 2022. Charlie reminded Chief Constable Jason Hogg the 14th of August 2024 that 57 victims had written to him for progress. A judge's order is hard evidence, but the police lied that all of Charlie's evidence were allegations. The police did everything in their power to not do the job which they are paid to do. The police spun the 57 individual victim progress letters as complaints from one person, Jim Fraser, and used it as an excuse to not do their job that they are paid to do by the public. A public inquiry is needed to stop this ongoing systemic gross misconduct at TV Police HQ in the public interest, because it is wrecking the economy. The evidence that you will see in this presentation gives you full details of all the horrors that the victims endured. The 16th of January 2025, Thames Valley Chief Constable Jason Hogg was temporarily suspended for about 2 weeks in relation to allegations for gross misconduct, which were not proven. His deputy, Ben Snuggs, had taken over for him for those 2 weeks. The video presentation, which follows, relates to manifest gross misconduct abuses at Thames Valley Police Headquarters up until Jason Hogg had been suspended. Prior to the suspension, Jason Hogg and Ben Snuggs were jointly responsible for these horrific abuses of victims of Chipping Norton Football Club. When BBC Internet Archive Ripped Off Join the Club was aired on BBC Panorama 7 years ago, there was little to no evidence. Now that we have the following evidence, we need a public voice. Especially since the Chipping Norton Football Club pitch has been sitting idle for 10 years. If Thames Valley Police had done their job, justice would have been served. The pitch would be in use and HMRC would have got its £500,000. This video presentation relates to Chipping Norton Football Club's proud 100-plus-year-old history when it used to play in the FA Cup. The clubhouse kitchen and spacious dining area served its 200 members. Its stage was used for live shows. The club was the heart and soul of the community. That heart and soul was destroyed by Wilkin Chapman solicitors and V-Bar Limited's majority shareholder Paul Beverley. Chipping Norton's club was demolished and replaced by a glorified shed which was used as a nursery. Thousands of members of about 50 other clubs suffered similar trauma. Stoke's club was burnt down by arsonists. When BBC Internet Archive Ripped Off Join the Club was aired on Panorama over 7 years ago, Jim Fraser's family were asked to help and give advice. The following evidence was gathered by Jim over a period of 7 years. If you are unsure of the relevance of criminal law, civil law, or if the subsequent events below relate to your club, please feel free to ring Jim on 07747 442 638. Chipping Norton MP Sean Woodcock watched BBC Panorama when it was aired over 7 years ago, and he informed Jim Fraser, who is helping Chipping Norton Football Club, that he was appalled at what had happened at Chipping Norton. Police Constable Maggie Oliver quit her job because Chief Constables stonewalled child abuse evidence. She seeks a public inquiry into these Chief Constables. If she does not succeed, it will ruin public confidence in the police, deter foreign investors, and cost UK Gov billions per annum. Sean subsequently had 2 meetings with Jim, who gave him the evidence. Jim had been working with Town Councillor Alex Keyser for 12 months. Sean asked to meet Jim at his house because Jim held all the evidence there. Sean then met Jim, who invited him to refute each part of the documentary evidence, but Sean agreed all the evidence. Sean also saw evidence of clubs in Blackpool being defrauded by V-Bar Limited.
Mobile phone footage captured the moment when Glyn Jones sent administrators in to seize control.
They're in.
As that was happening, he was back in Chesterfield at Barrow Hill.
Sorry, it's the crew up in Blackpool. I've got to take the call. So, oh yeah. Yeah. And then bolt that shuts it down when an ass with the staple. Well done.
Glyn Jones and supporters of Stanley Road are now fighting it out in the civil courts.
It's just what we get involved in.
Clubs fought losing battles. One example is Stoke Club in the Midlands. Its Ms MacDonald lost her case when Jane Armstrong illegally took the club's paperwork to V-Bar Limited's office, where Wilkin Chapman solicitors had previously met. Glyn Jones was employed as a director by V-Bar Limited's majority shareholders owner, Paul Beverley. For years, Wilkin Chapman solicitors sent registered charge invitations to UK clubs on behalf of V-Bar Limited, despite V-Bar Limited not being registered by the Financial Conduct Authority to offer registered charges. A quick check by Wilkin Chapman at Companies House would have shown that V-Bar Limited had less than £600 in its bank accounts, when Chipping Norton Football Club was offered a £200,000 registered charge.
We wanted to know more about Glyn Jones's complex business empire. Forensic accountant Gavin Cunningham has taken a look.
Have you discovered how this company operates?
The modus operandi here seems to be taking over control of the assets of the original clubs and societies. Assets have been then frequently given as security for loans, and then those loans have been called in and that they lose those assets.
So how did Glyn Jones lure clubs into his web? For years, he claimed Minotaur were fully licensed and regulated by the Office of Fair Trading and the Information Commissioner, giving clubs false reassurance.
Here we are, clubs going to Minotaur for help, and yet coming away with nothing.
Yes, that is the effect of this. This is systematic. It's been repeated time and time again. If this is done with a deliberate intent, there certainly would seem to be grounds for a criminal investigation into this conduct, as well as a regulatory investigation.
Until now, the activities of Glyn Jones and his Minotaur group of companies have gone largely unnoticed and unreported.
Sean then agreed to meet Gavin Cunningham, who featured on Panorama with Alex and Jim in London in the new year. BBC Panorama can be viewed on this link. BBC Internet Archive ripped off Join the Club. The following evidence was then shown and explained to Sean. Sean saw forensic accountant Gavin Cunningham's concerns about fraud on Panorama. In July 2019, Jim sent evidence of fraud to Gavin of a TR1 used by Wilkin Chapman solicitors for gain. Gavin indicated that this was a fact, because of similar facts arising at about 50 other UK clubs. Stoke Club was then destroyed by arsonists. At Milton Keynes Court, Deputy District Judge Hanning later was given Ms MacDonald's witness statement regarding Jane Armstrong's role in removing her club's paperwork. Gavin found evidence of fraud involving Wilkin Chapman solicitors and the TR1 under Section 2, 3 and 4 of the 2006 Serious Fraud Act. That evidence was then passed to former Mayor Mike Tysoe, who gave evidence of a fraud of about £3 million to Duncan Wynne of Thames Valley Police on the 29th of July 2019. Alex, in his role as town councillor on behalf of the community, presented the evidence of corruption by a judge and Thames Valley Police in fine detail to Sean, which Sean agreed. Sean had evidence from the Institute of Chartered Accountants England and Wales and the Land Registry figures, all linked to corruption and damage, linked to action fraud. Current UK Gov figures confirm that fraud is rocketing out of control and will lose even more billions each year. In December 2024, Prime Minister Keir Starmer pledged to build a country to be proud of. Keir can start by acting on Sean's evidence. If somebody steals or defrauds you of a car, house, club, cash, or property, they do not own these. That is why the members still own their club. Sean was shown evidence of Wilkin Chapman inviting Stanley Road Club members to pay £10,000 upfront to V-Bar Limited for a £130,000 registered charge, providing Stanley Road Club applied in writing within 1 month only and paid the £10,000 to V-Bar Limited solicitors, Wilkin Chapman. The following footage was taken at a meeting in Chipping Norton with the club members, just prior to the meeting on the 20th of December 2024.
The top page is a sort of it's a rough guide to the law. And if anybody just goes to the top piece of paper here. Yeah. The basic rules in any organisation or anything. The police need a High Court order to even go into your house. Even if you're a criminal, they can't just barge into your house. They need a High Court order. Now, you've seen these guys here. They're saying that the receivers, that these guys are the receivers. These are not receivers. They're thugs going in to take that over that club. Same happened in Chipping Norton. Kim Clark is here. Where's Kim? Kim was there. They came in with catapults, took all the money out of the till, and we can't do a dicky bird about it. There's 4 million quid has been lost in Chipping Norton from these people. So you can have, we just go down to this next point. Yeah. So you can't change locks on a property. You can't just go up to anybody's house, just change locks. An unsecured loan is not a registered charge. You can owe your next door neighbour £1 million. He can't just come and take your house. He can't even come through the door. He's got to get an order from the High Court. You've seen it, they get order, you get an eye, then you can enter somebody's house. I'm just going to show you the exhibits, and I'll explain to you the relevance of these. So if you would like to go to number 1, has everybody got number 1? Now, it's dated the 12th of September, and it's referring to V-Bar, and it's giving you the company registration number. I've got copies of their accounts here. They had £542 in the bank. And it's an invitation, nothing else, it's an invitation to pay Wilkin Chapman £5,000, to pay V-Bar £5,000. And if they do that, they're saying they're entitled to £200,000 loan. And I've asked the question many times before, and I'll put it again. Did anybody pay the £5,000? And nobody paid it. Did anybody ever get 200k from V-Bar? Nobody got a penny. Very simple, basic mathematics. If I go over onto, if you have a look at page 2. Well, on page 2, these are the conditions that they have to pay £5,000 to V-Bar. That is one of the conditions. And if I go over to page number 3, you will see that they've also got to apply in writing within 2 months, otherwise the whole thing falls out of bed. So they haven't done, they've now paid the £5,000, they haven't applied in writing. So from there on, the scam picks off big time. Now if we go over to item number 6 on the reverse, I wrote to Land Registry years ago, and I'm showing you all the pages. I'm just going to there's page 2 of 3. So I've been told by Land Registry quite categorically that Wilkin Chapman solicitor lodged a charge of dated the 12th of September 2013 in favour of V-Bar. So if we go down a little bit further down to this one here, they're saying that there's confirming that there's a charge dated on that date. It's specific, it's in black and white. Now that's a con, a massive con. That's enough there to send Wilkin Chapman solicitors to prison. And Wilkin Chapman, the partners are sending that of that firm. If you're a partner in a business, you're a partner in the crime, because you get benefits, you get dividends, they're shared with the partners. So the partners within Wilkin Chapman are making money out of this from day one with all the clubs that have gone through the system. That's a lot of money. Wilkin Chapman, they make £10 million profit a year. They can pay that at the drop of a hat. It's there. And the evidence is just there in those few bits of paper. Well, we'll go to page number 7. On page 7, everybody? Yeah. Now, nobody at the club is privy to this email. It's an email from Rachel Perry, who's a solicitor at Wilkin Chapman, and she's dealing with a guy by the name of Michael Foster. He's one of the directors of V-Bar. So they know that there's a plan afoot to sell a strip of land for £605,000. I've underlined there in red. Can anybody see that? Yeah. Yep. So the scam, it kicked off. The ink was hardly dry on those papers, and the scam was was off the blocks. We've now got to go to number 8. Now, if you look at number 8, Wilkin Chapman, they're writing to HMRC's agent, Diana Brown. She's an agent for HMRC, and they're referring to HMRC's reference there, and they're saying, we have been instructed by V-Bar Limited. So they are acting on behalf of V-Bar. And they're saying that they went into an agreement with the club. They didn't have any agreement. They invited them to make an offer. They never took it up. So this is a deception. And then they're saying that V-Bar paid HMRC 9 grand. It only had 500 quid in its bank. The club paid its own bills. It's there. I've got the documents. Because when they took away the hard copies, there was some on Kim's computer, which also went to the accountant. So we had a money trail. If we go overleaf, and we just go further down the page. So at the top there, they're confirming the charge by way of a first charge with V-Bar. So that's a deception, 100% deception. And they're telling HMRC that they're going to get money from them if they go on the property. They're threatening HMRC with a trespass, black and white. Now, when people have got that amount of power, I worry big time. I worry big time. Let's go to number 12. Now, you'll see that there's addresses crossed out. You're looking at Director Mr. Foster, but there was no name given for this guy on this document. When you register stuff at Land Registry, you've got to name the people. Put stuff under there. They had somebody within Land Registry that was registering utter rubbish. If anybody else put that in, it'd be chucked straight back at them. And that's a fact. Look at it, it's rubbish. And there's a warning on there. If you sign this or make gain for yourself or others, it's up to 10 years in prison. And that's exactly what they did. And I've got the evidence of them making gain. So if I go to number 13, and I should have added a few more pages in there, but I'm trying to keep it short for you, not to confuse you. But Wilkin Chapman, then they take that TR1, they move it over, and they register it with Land Registry, and they register it with the taxman, because if it goes over to the taxman, if something sells for a lot of money, there's capital gains due, stamp duty due. This 140 thing, instead they didn't want to go in with the 200,000 because it would arouse suspicion. So they kept it under the radar at saying the club just took that amount from us.
Most importantly, there was never a legal registered charge, and the members never had a £140,000 loan from Wilkin Chapman on behalf of V-Bar Limited or any other entity. A process had begun to defraud HMRC of about £500,000 and the club members of about £2,800,000.
And so this, again, is a massive prison term. No ifs, no buts. They're duping HMRC, and then it goes to Land Registry, and they've then put a charge on our club at Land Registry. There was no charge in the first place, but this is a big con, all of this.
Excuse me.
Hello, sorry.
On that page 13, that AP1,
Yeah.
number 1 in the boxes down below, the local authority serving the property, West Oxfordshire District Council, full postcode, if any property,
Yeah.
OX75DQ, that's my house.
Well, I see.
Football club.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
The football club was OX75UY.
Yeah. Well, you can see the way that they were chucking anything, I've just heard this now, chucking anything, everything and anything into Land Registry. We come to item number 15. 15 is what they call a completion statement. Now this was produced by a whistleblower at Wilkin Chapman.
Without the members' knowledge, and due to Wilkin Chapman abusing the loan invitation of the 12th of September 2013, the TR1, AP1, Wilkin Chapman's solicitors kept £995,000 of the club's money and later worked with Chubb Law, Paul Dalton, to launder the football pitch via Paul Beverley, V-Bar's majority shareholder. Wilkin Chapman then gave £472,440 of the club's cash to a third party. If Wilkin Chapman solicitors are held to account and are charged with fraud, this will automatically send a warning to all UK solicitors to make sure that they do not send anything to Land Registry that may mislead, e.g. the incomplete TR1, fit for Land Registry's bin.
So we got this as a miracle. We're one of the few people that ever got anything like this. So it's saying there that employment and corporate advice, 750 quid. Now, I've seen an email from Kim, worried, to say, I've got this redundancy money, everybody's asking me questions, so she's feeling guilty. They're under the impression that she's fiddling. This is the sort of stuff that's gone on, the pressures that have been put on people. Innocent people, she's been made to feel guilty. And that is just not on, in my book. And if we go further down, so that evidence has been supplied by Teresa Thomas and Mike Squirrel. So they're feeding duff information to the members here to get money from the government. When 4 grand was taken out, 5 grand was taken out of the club a few days beforehand. The club's money. If they were getting any redundancy money, it should have come from that cash. And the other 50 grand that was stolen over the last 15 months. And so they're saying that they're chucking the balance of the money into Minotaur's resolutions. They're giving it to a third party. This is crazy. Lengthy prison terms for everybody. We now come to 21. For those of you that haven't got a copy, this gentleman here was worried about his children. And he's asked to have his name redacted from here because of the threats that came. And if you look here, we'll see Pete Van Gelder. He's the one that threatened HMRC with a trespass. He's wearing a different hat this time. He's working from Spearing Weight. And they're instructed by V-Bar Limited and a whole pile of solicitors, all the bench solicitors. They're on board. So, and if you go further down, they're saying that the club sold the land and buildings, Chippy Norton Football Club, to V-Bar Limited on the 12th of September. Now, if you think of the date of the 12th of September, that's the day when they signed the invitation. If you go to Land Registry in the morning, there's no such sale occurred. Another massive crime. You could get your money back at the drop of a hat if the system works with you. So we're 1, 2, 3, 3 paragraphs up from the bottom. So I've highlighted the fact that they're saying that solicitors perfected the agreements. The Chippy Club didn't have any solicitor, they didn't have any say in it. The only solicitors perfecting the agreement was Wilkin Chapman. And it's the guy himself. The guy who's writing this, he's saying Wilkin Chapman perfected the agreement. Wilkin Chapman were at the heart of that scam. I'll just see if there's any pointies. And if you look down here, I think they're threatening the guy that signed this. They're threatening him. They're saying, you're harassing us by writing these letters. It's the other way around. He's been harassed by them. They're accusing this guy here of harassing them. So they're threatening him to get money off him. That is the power these people have. It's disgraceful. I'm going back 5 years ago. I was dealing with my inquiries with Land Registry. I gave them the lowdown on the TR1. Are we on page 23, everybody? Yeah. Right, so Land Registry are writing to me, and they're writing sort of 5 years ago, over 5 years ago. And there, I've given them the evidence of the TR1, the rubbish that was stamped at Land Registry. And I'm referring to the TR1 there. And I'm saying he didn't print his name. They were doing it for gain. I showed them evidence of doing it for gain. They told me to take it to the police. If you have a look up there, inform the police immediately.
Land Registry ought to have returned that TR1 to Wilkin Chapman because bits were deleted, added and omitted. Land Registry ought to have compensated the members because the TR1 was fit for the bin. They put the onus on hapless members to get compensation via the police. Since then, Land Registry have indicated that they will not change their current modus operandi, i.e. more of the same is likely to follow. On the 10th of December 2024, Mr. Fraser wrote to Land Registry's Chief Executive, Mr. Hayes, ref the TR1 and applications which ought to have returned to sender. On the 17th of December 2024, they replied with a silly letter which indicated that they had no intention of changing their modus operandi.
They're telling me to do that. So, Land Registry know that there's a crime and rubbish is getting cycled through Land Registry. Let's go to sheet number 24. We're on sheet 24. I was chasing this lady because she gave a different address on the TR1. She was not at that address. So I was chasing her. I eventually tracked her down in the Midlands and she's hitting the panic button. So I didn't even know her telephone number. She's ringing me because she knows I'm on her tail. And she says, so she rang me and I'm saying that I told you that I was making notes of your conversation. If you look up at the top, she knows that I'm writing these notes down. And I'll give her until 3 o'clock the next day to confirm if everything is correct in what I'm writing. And she queried little tiddly minor issues, but she agreed everything that I wrote on here, the bulk of the content in this letter. So I don't want to bog you down too much about company law, but if you look down here, she's turning around and she's saying that she used to work in Jones's office, that's the scammer's office. And she's saying Wilkin Chapman used to visit him there.
Jim had aired that Jane Armstrong had visited 3 times a week. Jim's big concerns arose at Armstrong illegally getting redundancy money via the government, lying that the club was insolvent, duping HMRC by claiming that the club took £800 per week, abuse of a dormant limited company to defraud HMRC and the club's 200 members of large sums of VAT, and of Wilkin Chapman's and Chubb's solicitors' involvement, to reward the Hong Kong businessman.
So all the money was getting shipped from Kim with the fraud. She can tell you about it in detail, how it went on, was all getting shipped up there. The deeds that were signed were all shipped up there. Wilkin Chapman were coming across, collecting the stuff, and I can't say they took the money, but they didn't come over for nothing, that's for sure, because they come all the way from East Anglia. Would have been about a 250-mile round trip. Solicitors don't do that to just visit a client. You pick up telephones, you write letters. That's how you communicate. You don't make 250-mile round trips. So I can only make assumptions in there, and they're talking about she used to work in Wilkin Chapman's office. So, and if you go down to the very end, she's admitting that they had sent money to a Hong Kong businessman. She told me that over the telephone.
Armstrong, who helped to execute the TR1, claimed that the club's money had been transferred to a Hong Kong moneylender via Chubb's solicitors, who then became jointly culpable in that fraud.
So I then discovered who the Hong Kong businessman. His name is Paul Beverley. He lives down he's in the UK. He's got offices around the world. And he earns about 10 million quid a year, earns that. So you see at the very bottom, I'll give you till Yeah. I gave her till the trustees till tomorrow. I gave her a deadline.
Ken, can I ask a question?
Of course. Yeah.
Page 24, who actually owns the football club at that stage? Because it's jumping quite a bit.
The club have always owned the football. This is the misconception that everybody, I even had it at the last meeting here, everybody's under the impression that we blew it. We never blew anything. You owned the club from that day till this, and it's in black and white. I'm showing you the steps.
I don't think that's right though, Jim.
Sorry?
The trustees signed the TR1 over,
Yeah.
which is the land. That's where the scam comes.
Yeah. Can I just short circuit an awful lot of that? Chipping Norton Sports and Social Club Limited is a dormant limited company with 100 quid in its thing. You cannot buy a football club for 100 quid. End of story. It's a criminal offence for a dormant limited company to trade.
Jim,
Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Of
no,
course,
they find
yeah,
something,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's what the scam is. Yeah.
Yeah.
They find it. They
I'd
sign
just
it
like
falsely.
to. My name's Ken Green. I'm General Secretary of the Club and Institute Union.
Yeah.
A lot of our clubs have been scammed in the same vein.
Yeah.
Ken represented several UK clubs who were defrauded in the same vein, using the same tactics that were used against Chipping Norton Football Club and the clubs in Blackpool.
When you look at the TR1, it's referring to, on page 2, it's referring to a registered charge. There was no, this was all based on the premise that there was a registered charge. It's on page 2, up near the top. There was never a so the TR1 was not fit for purpose. Not fit for purpose. Dustbin stuff. That's all it was. Dustbin stuff.
Basically, that £5,000 is what they wanted us to pay them, so they would lend us £200,000.
Yeah. So the club never paid the money. So there was never a deal on the table in the first place. So no matter what forms you signed after that, TR1s or anything, there was no, the scam was in place.
If that is the scam, and they're saying that they've made a contract to buy the club,
Yeah.
surely because that money's not been paid, they're in breach of contract.
There was no contract. There was no contract. This is the misconception everybody has, that there was a contract. There was no contract. There was an offer. I just explain one little simple concept. A dormant limited companies, they're referred to as Trojan horses. They can carry any scam on this planet. A dormant limited company, it's referring to a dormant limited company there. There's, I think, about 900,000 dormant limited companies in the UK, and a lot of them are trading. Huge amounts of them are trading. That's why the economy is going down the pan.
Well, the TR1 is basically,
Yeah.
they were told, they were asked to sign it,
Yeah.
but there was no witnesses or anything.
Yeah.
That's the initial. That's the scam. Once they've got the TR1, they've got the land.
Yeah.
Then they can say what they're doing. Yeah.
Once they initiated the scam by saying they had a charge on it, by a £200,000 loan, that's when it started, not with the TR1.
If I had the TR1 here, I would actually show you. The TR1 is based on a Trojan horse, a dormant limited company that can carry a scam. That's why it's mentioned in there, a dormant limited company, because it's a tool for the scam. Nobody seems to grasp this point. The Trojan horse is a scam. You can carry any scam in this planet in a Trojan horse. They're nicknamed Trojan horses. That's the nickname. Look it up online. They're called Trojan horses.
A simple check at Company's house revealed on an AR01 the history of that dormant limited company, which carried the TR1 which Wilkin Chapman registered. Once the scams had been carried in it, the dormant company was then liquidated by a liquidator nicknamed Taz, i.e. the evidence was destroyed.
Can we go to page number 36? If you look at page number 36, this is from Mike Foster, the scammer, to me in 2022. And he's talking about the funding process. the offer letter. He's discussing, going through all those documents. So CNSSCL Limited is the Trojan horse that I spoke about, the dormant limited company that's carrying all the scams. At this stage, it's dumped all the scams in Hong Kong. Some of the property has been dumped in Hong Kong. So a dormant limited company. So he's trying to win me over with arguments because he knows the game is pretty well up at this stage. So he's showing me what he sent to Taz. Now I gather that Taz has got some sort of a family connection with Jones. Taz is the official receiver. Official receiver, and this lady will probably bear me out, they're an officer on the court when they're winding a company down like this. So the scammer is writing to him on Christian name terms. They're buddies. And if you look further down, they're talking about Minotaur only. Minotaur is not the name of a company. It's not a company as such. It's a tag for a number of companies. So they're talking about, he's saying, the new clubhouse, mentioned the clear point of building the new club was to give it back to the club. We're looking here at the first sentence. So he's telling this to the official receiver, black and white. And then he's saying what he did, Glyn Jones, and he's not talking about Glyn Jones because he's covering his back. He's talking about Paul Paul Beverley. That's who he's really talking about. Yeah. He's talking about Paul Beverley's company in Hong Kong. He's talking about him down there. So, and he's worth 100 million. So they are, now that all the stuff has been dumped, it's been put into the receiver to kill off the evidence. It's been put into the receiver. The receiver should be bringing in the police instantly. Instantly. The receiver is an officer of the court. They're witnessing the scam. They're burying the evidence. So let's go across then to 87. I think we have to look at, we have to look at these two documents here. If you look at 87 and 88. Jeff Soul got these from me from Land Registry. Jeff got these. So these items here, utter rubbish, have been recorded at Land Registry as kosher. They're saying that the annual rent that should be going to the members here, 44 grand a year for the upkeep, is not going to them. That's the money they're getting from Banana Moon. Banana Moon is mentioned. Because Groverleaf, 88, Banana Moon is mentioned. If you look there, look, Minotaur Investments, Hong Kong, and Jones is signing it. He's got nothing to do with Minotaur Investments. He's got Emeritus Investments. He's covering up for Paul Beverley, the owner of V-Bar. That's a scam itself. He's putting himself up as being emeritus. It's covering up the real scammer. Now, if you have a look down the second time, signature of witness. Are we all on this page here? Yeah, signature of witness. When you sign a document like that, especially going into Land Registry, you print your name. This guy hasn't even printed his name. But I've traced it down very, very quickly. He's Paul Dalton, a solicitor. And he's in the UK. He can be traced down. He's got money. We're Banana Moon Nursery. They haven't even signed the paperwork. It's registered at Land Registry. The scammers are getting rubbish, utter rubbish, rubber stamped at Land Registry.
This evidence was also shown to Thames Valley Police and Deputy District Judge Hanning at Milton Keynes County Court. Despite this not being a simple matter of negligence, they took no action, so effectively gave support to the fraudsters, and as a result, Chipping Norton Football Club members lost about £4 million and HMRC lost at least £500,000 in stamp duty and capital gains tax. Paul Beverley of PMS Basildon, Essex, then formed Emeritus Investments, which also became a tool to carry frauds created by Wilkin Chapman and Chubb Law, Paul Dalton solicitor.
Now, this is Kim's witness statement that she signed for the court. Now, when you sign a witness statement, it is evidence. If it's not evidence, you're committing perjury. There's no ifs, no buts, no middle ground. She is stating quite categorically that these guys come in with the catapults. They took the New Year's cash, Christmas and New Year's money out, which is an awful lot of money, in my estimate, the cash flow figures that I've looked at show it's well over £5,000. They took that money out. The men, Armstrong came in, took the money out, all the stuff, and let the catapult men in. Now, if we have a look down at how this Armstrong did for the last 15 months, she was planted in the club as a plant for 15 months. Is that correct, Kim? Have I got that right? Yeah. Yeah. So Kim will tell you she was planted in the club, helping the club, and they didn't know what was going on. She was getting paid. And she was taking out the paying slips out of the books, taking the money out in her handbag, and just taking the paying slips. So she was paid to act for V-Bar. So she was the one that signed the TR1. This same person, we're talking all the time about the TR1, she was getting paid. She wasn't up there for nothing. And she set up a bank account for the Dormant Limited Company. So all the cash was also going into the Dormant Limited Company because it was a Trojan horse, a scam to carry cash. So they're putting all the wages, the takings, into a Trojan horse.
Jane Armstrong filed a witness statement in court as an alibi in relation to her conduct, which Kim had referred to in her witness statement. Armstrong lied that there was a loan agreement in existence. She also committed perjury by lying that the claimant, i.e. Chipping Norton Football Club members, had not kept any accounts of their income and expenditure. Armstrong admits to being paid a salary, which included her time to sign a TR1 for her employers. She refers to a new paying-in book for a dormant limited company. She admits that she put the club's takings into its bank account for the purpose of keeping a tally on the club's takings and expenditures. All she had to do was to look at the existing club's bank accounts where a formal tally existed for HMRC and the club's chartered accountant.
If you look at page number 100, if we look at 100, the Trojan horse, Chipping Norton Sports and Social Club Limited, right, is a Trojan horse set up as a legal mortgage. It's set up by Chubb solicitors, the Bent solicitors that are acting in this, and that transcript that I've got on record at home, they're calling this guy Bent.
Mike Foster and solicitor Paul Dalton of Chubb Law were then helping Paul Beverley, V-Bar Limited's owner, of Emeritus Investment in Hong Kong, to launder the land occupied by Banana Moon Nursery and the football pitch.
If you have a look, are we on page 101? Right. Young is signing it. That's Foster's wife. Yep. And he is the one, is up the top there, signed it, he hasn't printed his name. So, if you have a look, they're now changed their address to 15 The Green. Everything was 14 before. If you go up there today, that house doesn't exist. It's a scam address. It doesn't exist. Part of the scam again. They just change things. Anything is planted into land registry, rubber stamped. Right, we come to, are we on to page 158? So, Mike Tyso I gave him all the evidence. All this evidence we see here, I give it to Mike Tyso, give him quite a big wad of documents to report, because he was then going to use his authority as a councillor with leverage to get somewhere with this. He's reporting it to a chief inspector at Thames Valley Police. He's been fobbed off to action fraud. Now, that is a con again. Mike Tyso left it on there, so he's talking to an Inspector Wynne. So he's letting him know that there's a scam of 1 million and 1 to 2 million, up to £3 million of a fraud, a scam. And this inspector is sending him across, fobbing him off. Fobbing him off. That's pathetic. It's terrible. They know that and they got all the details that I've given you there, and they're just don't want to look at the evidence.
Mike was relaying the evidence produced by forensic accountant Gavin Cunningham regarding serious breaches of the Serious Fraud Act with the TR1, which was used by Wilkin Chapman solicitors.
So I'm just going to 166. I'll just explain briefly what this is. It's from Land Registry to myself again. And they are coming up to me with a solution to get the land back for the club. They're saying if I get an order from a judge, a remedy order, that they'll change the records and put everything back into us. So let me overlay. So I'm jumping the gun a little bit because my granddaughter's here, Alice, on the left, and we'll come to a little bit in a moment where she approaches up to 25 solicitors in the UK and offering 20 grand of her own money for a 2-hour hearing in a court. She didn't get one single taker. She was working with Gavin Cunningham. I went down to London with her, went into lawyer's office, trying to get a... They listen to you, they send you a bill, they refuse to act for you. Were any of you here when we had the meeting in the front lounge in the Crown and Cushion? You were here, Les, weren't you? I was. Yeah. Well, Alice was there at that meeting. It cost her 1,800 quid just to have that meeting. And they wouldn't work for us. They gave us the fingers. That is what goes on. They're close ranks when they see piles of teams of solicitors all working together. And that's the reality of life. And it's in there. We're sent off. So I'm coming now to item 176. Now this may go over your head, but it won't with this young lady here. So there, I had to be the Mackenzie friend. Nobody else would take it on. So Muggins here became the Mackenzie friend. I registered properly, diligently at the courthouse. And they sent back the forms, you're down as a Mackenzie friend. So I put in all this evidence that I'm giving you here now into there to get a remedy from the judge. So we go in. Now, Kim was there and Wes was there. First thing the judge, before I issued it about 6 months earlier. They defaulted, didn't reply to the summons. I put in a default order. I got no reply from the court. Huge alarm bells are ringing that they're in with the judge. Because I sent everything, recorded delivery, went straight into the court. The documents went into the court. They defaulted because the default document blanked by the judge. And I knew what was afoot at that stage. When I then took my witness statements in for everybody else and myself, I drove all the way to Milton Keynes and I put the stuff, went into the office. There was a policeman there with a box And all the witness statements, our witness statements, my own, because I was witness as well, all went into that one box. We arrived in court, and Kim will tell you this. We were ushered into this room, and there was no defendants there. We thought, we're home and dry again. They defaulted, didn't even turn up for the hearing. The first thing the judge said, he said, I have not had any witness statements at all from anybody. And it'll be in a transcript, a court transcript. He opens it up, and I tell him immediately that I posted them in. Now, any judge, the first thing they do is they pick up the phone to their clerk and they say, send up the witness statements. He made no attempt to do that. He made no attempt to make a default order because the other side never turning up. These are standard procedures. And the reason is because he'd been got at. And I've got evidence of that. It's coming up soon. So we're looking here at, again, at 176. He's treating me, upon hearing Mr. Fraser, as a Mackenzie friend for the claimant. So I'm on the court record, acting for, and I know that I'm not allowed to speak, but I'm allowed to speak as a witness, because I put in a witness statement.
Deputy District Hanning misled that the Part 8 remedy was a claim when he typed in the word claim in his order. He used this pretense to try and dupe the claimant Wes Harris, that he had filed a claim as opposed to a remedy. He then ordered Wes to file claim for money against a dormant limited company, which could result in some of the club members losing their homes if they sought their damages of about £4 million from a dormant company.
So he like I've said, he said he got no witness. So he's passed over Kim's witness statement. He's reading it. He's reading all the witness statements about the catapults, the crimes, and all the rubbish that went with it. All the stuff you've seen. He's looking at it. So he decides to shut the hearing down.
Judge Hanning made a comment during the hearing to Charlie Korszewski, who was an observer. DJ Hanning made it clear that, if we had used a solicitor that day, we would have won the case. Deputy District Judge Hanning had never been a solicitor. His credentials of helping litigants in person, akin to Wes Harris, enabled him to become a judge. Shortly after he became a judge, he committed a criminal act by abusing court procedure rules and by colluding with another judge to abuse litigants in person. DJJ Hanning had been a paralegal 2 years earlier, who offered himself as a person who helped litigants in person and those who could not get solicitors to act for them. Ruth Campbell had also been a paralegal 2 years earlier. Whilst at Wasco Brown Solicitors, she emailed DDJ Hanning, who used her email to get orders made in Oxford Court without the victim's knowledge.
And I suspected something that was wrong here, and I tried to press them to get an order. It took them, normally an order comes out within a week, something like that. I'm chasing an order, it eventually comes out 16th of November, but it's even held back in the court because he was giving me a 2 to 3 week deadline to reply. I was up again, he was trying to default me to not comply with the order. So he sent this out, he treats me as a Mackenzie friend, and what he then does, he does an extraordinary thing. He says, the claim shall proceed under Part 7. Now, a Part 7 is a claim for money. We put in a Part 8 application, which doesn't require money, it's a remedy for land registry. And people do this the whole time, it's a remedy. So he's saying, this is going to proceed for money instead. If you want to sue somebody for money, it's a personal choice. A judge can't just tell you to sue your neighbour or anybody. But it's there in black and white. This is part of the system, the corruption, the influence that these solicitors had on the court. So they're telling the club there to sue the dormant limited company, and it's there. You will sue this dormant limited company which has got 100 quid in its bank for about 2.8 million, sending us, everybody, down a blind alley. Disgraceful. Yeah, so I've made the point there. So you've got these documents, and these are priceless documents. I keep telling you, whatever you do, don't lose these. Let's turn over, have a look at 63. If you notice, on this first line here, District Judge Melissa Clark is sitting. What's she doing on the scene? She's in Oxford. You can't just get somebody else to ring up and make a phone call or send an email or letter to get a judge in another district to make orders for your behalf. So what's happened here, if we go down to here, she's got an email from Musco Brown. They're the solicitors for the defendants. An email. Anybody that puts in any, you get stuff changed by using court applications. You don't send, these people are getting court applications on the back of bloody emails. It's there in black and white. You can't escape it. So what he's done now, if you look down here, Mr. James Fraser is not a litigation friend of any party. He's taken my legal status away, so as he doesn't have to listen to Kim's statement. He's squashing everything. This is a horrendous crime. In terms of crimes, this is rates by far the UK's gravest fraud. Mark my words. When these people have got a judge in their pocket, sending them emails to get orders. It's there in front of your eyes. So we then go over to 178. They've 13th of January, they've not given her a title for this one. They're saying Her Honour, but they're not saying if she's a district judge or whatever sort of a judge. And they're saying, sitting in St. Aldate's, so we don't even know this hearing's gone on. If you move it to another court, this lady here will tell you that you've got to put in applications. There's a formal process to move it from one court to another. This is crazy, just printing stuff out. This is happening with this judge in Milton Keynes. Yeah, so he's saying he's got no stand-in to make this application, but I have, because I'm acting for the trustees. I'm the Mackenzie friend, so the corruption is just mind-boggling. So they're saying that my application is struck out without merit. Yeah. They're saying application form dated, so basically about the people not turning up in court, the defaults. They're saying, I got no authority to make it. So they're covering up the fact that all the scammers never turned up to the court, never replied to the summons. So then, do you grasp the relevance of this? No. You don't? Yeah, well, I'll explain to you. Yeah, but I'm sure some of you do, that if you've ever been to court, there's set protocols. They're called CPRs, Court Procedure Rules. Every single rule in the book has been broken here. Every rule.
At a later date, Mr. Fraser phoned a court clerk and explained concerns at orders being made in Oxford Court without the claimant's knowledge. The clerk cited court procedures and made it clear that there was abuse of process by judges. The police evidence fraud regarding the judges' non-disclosures under the 2006 Serious Fraud Act in Milton Keynes and Oxford courts at 3 court hearings, which the victims were oblivious to having been heard. See upcoming exhibits 178 and 179. Judge Hanning opted to not dismiss the victim's Part 8 remedy. If he had dismissed the case, the claimant victims would have appealed. Instead, he breached the 2006 Fraud Act by frivolously ordering that the Part 8 would proceed as a Part 7 money claim against a dormant company, despite knowing that he could not legally combine a money claim with a remedy application. CPRs are cast in stone. Moreover, solicitors Wasco Brown emailed a judge to make illegal gain for all 3 defendants, despite Wasco Brown not being on the court record for the first and second defendants at all, which is an additional serious fraud. See the Red Exhibit 177 in support. A public inquiry is needed to eradicate such flippant corruption in UK courts, which damages the economy.
So what's the point of having a rule book?
Jim, the information we've got on the internet says that Mackenzie's friends can't represent you in court.
I'll just tell you what the score is, and I'm glad you mentioned that point. You are allowed, I'm allowed to speak as a witness. Wes was not allowed to speak. He was the claimant, Wes Harris. He was not allowed to open his mouth.
Why not?
Because the judge didn't want to hear what was coming out of his mouth. That's why. Because he was going to go through all this document about the scams, etc. That was his right. He was the claimant. He was the claimant in the CUD. He was one of the trustees. He was the subject of the scam. So he was zipped up. End of story. Everybody was zipped up. We're in and out like a yo-yo. I'd asked for a 2-hour hearing. I was entitled to it. Couldn't get it. But even in that short space of time, the damage was done. Any other questions on the court procedures? No? Okay. So we come to 179. So there, if you have a look down, if we just go down to the to this statement here, they're referring to an appeal being made. Is everybody honed in on that? Yeah. So Mr. Fraser appearing to have no standing to bring this appeal. Now, the only person that can deal with appeals, and this lady will tell you, is a circuit judge. This judge is not a circuit judge. She's given herself the status of a circuit judge. Well, she is not, but Hanning is producing the stuff back at Milton Keynes. Now, Hanning and the solicitor, Ruth, whatever her name is, what's her name again?
Campbell. Ruth
Campbell. They were paralegals. Right, so we come to 162. Now, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, wrote to the judge for a copy of that email. He wrote to the cop. He never heard a dicky bird. They just didn't reply. So I'm then putting the facts to the judge. I'm letting him know, basically, that he's hiding something, because he is. And I want to go through all the stuff. I'm mentioning about the catapults, trying to get the evidence in, trying to get proper justice for the people that stood before him that day. I've outlined what he did do and shouldn't have done. I'm mentioning the TR used for laundering. He's been given the documentary evidence of it being used laundering. He's got all the scams have been laid out before him. And what he's then doing here, if you have a look down, the claimants N244, 434, and I'll tell you what those are. The one is for the time extension to get a solicitor. He stonewalled that. He gave me a short space to get it in. He stonewalled that, my application, to extend it. To let me act for the claimant to address the judge. And then 434, if he had allowed that, I would have been allowed to speak to the judge. He blanked that, stonewalled it. For the default orders, the N277 for the default orders, blank those to show that everybody was, all the forms I put in, to show that they never turned up and we won, all blanked. And X107 is for a copy of the court transcript. Now, when you appeal or go through an appeal process, you are allowed to see what the word said, the judge said, on paper. Does anybody know this? Yeah. You do. So when you go to appeal, you make it, you get your evidence together, and then you actually then lodge your appeal. We were blanked, stopped from doing that. The whole appeal process was stopped because I said I was no longer the Mackenzie friend. I'm dealing then. We're breaking our necks to get a solicitor. And it's item 180. So if we turn over to page 180, yeah. And if you look at the top of page 180, it says, yeah, you invited my granddaughter Alice. These solicitors invited Alice to hire them, basically, because it's there. You invite Alice, and yeah, we contact Gavin Cunningham. He was involved as well, trying to get us solicitors. And if we just go down to the next piece here, she pledged to pay you £20,000 up front just to act for them. They blew her out. That's an awful lot of money for any solicitor, this young lady will tell you. To get that money up front for a hearing for maybe half an hour, 2 hours, is huge money. That's how desperate this club was. Desperate. We just couldn't find anybody. And you cannot, if you commit a crime, you automatically get a solicitor. You cannot force any solicitor in the UK to act for you or take up your case. You can't. They can all give you the V sign and tell you to go off elsewhere. Now that is a fundamental fault in the system, and they use it to close ranks and not help you guys. That is the extent of the frauds or the way the system is working. I think I've finished it.
That's the last page, Jim.
Yeah, yeah. So, any questions regarding this?
What's next?
Exactly, what's next? We're country bumpkins. I keep saying this over and over and over. We've been trying to get justice. When we come up against stuff like this, we have not got a cat in hell's chance of getting justice in a court. If we go back to a civil court, we're going to get exactly the same again, right? So if we go back again, it'll be even worse the next time. It'll be even worse because we've been tarnished. Because we've done all the right things. The word's around, obviously, Milton Keynes Court, it's around Oxford Court. And this is not how the system is run. The monies that were paid for all those applications came to hundreds of pounds. When you buy any goods in a shop, you pay VAT. That VAT goes to pay that judge's wages. The hundreds of pounds that went in to get a hearing pays his wages. Hang on, I've missed a very important point out. When Dennis Wynne took those papers took all the evidence, and that chief inspector told him to fob off, basically, send him off. Charlie went back. He filed the evidence in with Thames Valley Police headquarters, took that evidence to Thames Valley Police. They replied back, put your complaints in against us. They treated the documentary evidence here as a complaint against them. Now, where do you go from there? Because there's a line coming there from that inspector back to Thames Valley headquarters. Because when a huge fraud is reported of that magnitude, there's a line through it because it's all on record. He then took it to Banbury Police Station. The lady said, we can't do this, it's action fraud matter. I was with Charlie, I said, we've been through all of this before. She says, I can't help you, it's going through the shredder. He takes it back the following week, there's a different PC on the desk. takes it back to the same police station. She reads it, he makes sure she reads it, and she agrees the fraud and the thefts. Instantly. She couldn't escape them. And she says, yeah. She says, she picked out a slip and she says, file it online. And we've been waiting for years just to get to that step. Why did we have to go through all of those steps? That took 3 years to get through those processes. 3 years. I get a telephone call from Thames Valley Police saying they want to meet me in private, but they don't want Charlie there, or they don't want the witnesses there. I thought, what the bloody hell is going on here? I was ready for them. I brought along Mike, Mike Dixon. I brought him along as a witness.
The Mike referred to is not Mike Tyso, a former mayor. This Mike is also the town's former mayor, Mike Dixon.
They read all the evidence about the corrupt judge. They read the evidence. They agreed with me that the judge was corrupt. Agreed with me. What did they do? They put the onus on Charlie to get the bloody witness statement from the judge. The one that they emailed from the judge. I'll speak to you in a moment, sorry. Yeah. They put the onus on the victims to get the evidence for the police. But that's their job, to go to the judge and say, let's have a look at the email. They should have gone to the solicitor that sent the bloody email to the court. They didn't do any of that. They were running. And I find that terrible, disgraceful. Because we pay their wages, the least they can do is help you. We're waiting for 5 years for them to take one witness statement from Kim. 5 years. Crazy. Absurd. Now, this is why people like Kim and Charlie and myself are boiling mad. This is not what you pay your taxes for. Oh yeah, the other point is Kim and all the victims in Chippy wrote personal letters to the Chief Constable for progress. They've been waiting 5 years to be heard by the police, and they turned back to say we can't help. They dumped us. They've dumped the people. Now, is anybody shocked at that? I'm bloody shocked.
Despite the police knowing that Mr. Fraser never filed a crime report to the police pretended that he had done so and had complained about the police. Such tactics are another example of corruption, enticing complaint against the police rather than interviewing witnesses and the victims and investigating the crime, thus wasting taxpayers' money.
Should ask the MP to raise it as a question in the House of Commons, the Prime Minister's question.
Yeah.
As a result of the member's proposal that the MP Sean raises questions at Prime Minister's question time, a written request has been made to Sean to raise it in the House of Commons. It is intended to give more information to Sean prior to asking the question to the Prime Minister to make sure the right details are emphasised.
Well, I again, the only people that have got a bit of influence with the MP is Alex and Sandra. Okay, I think we've had enough. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming, Ken. I appreciate you coming. Thank you for coming for all this as well.